Good morning, everyone. First of all, thank you for coming as early to our breakfast. There's nothing really too difficult in here. It's electrical safety, and the rules are quite simple. And the idea for my presentation is to recap, I suppose, the main points, how to keep yourself safe, what do we expect as WorkSafe when we visit in sites, and what you should do on a daily basis. So let's see. So electrical safety, in this context, really, when inspectors go around site, when we inquire what you're doing on site, what your policies and procedures on site, we have several really main bullet points here. And we have electrical work, prescribed electrical work, which is Australia New Zealand Standards 3000. It's not for your tradies, for your general tradie or any other, trade on site. It's for professional electricians to use. The practicable steps that we are looking for on all sites are described by AS/NZS 3012 and AS/NZS 3760. They are two great standards. We're not saying that you must have a copy of each standard. This presentation today will lay out a few bits and pieces that you need to follow on site, and then you shouldn't be concerned with your own safety. Now, we're always saying that we can recommend certain procedures, certain controls, but if you can't think of anything better than that, you are welcome to implement it as soon as it's not worse, as soon as the controls are effective. So let's start with temporary power supply. Before you start any construction site, before you start demolition site activities, you need power on site. Well, probably not with demolition, but let's say building site. You bring in electricians, they provide you with a temporary power supply. For commercial sites, it's the one on the left, very common. For residential sites, these two in the middle and on the right. Now, I'm not saying that these are correct power supplies. We'll drill through this later, but that's a general overview of how they look like. So some requirements, and these are basic requirements that we are looking at and you should be aware of. So temporary power supply, there is a requirement for it to be located at least 1,200 miles off the ground. It's to prevent it to be struck by a mobile plant, that it's visible, that it's in a dedicated spot. Live parts must be protected. It should be suitable to withstand mechanical, electrical, and thermal stress. It should be protected against moisture. So that's where IP rating is coming in. We'll look at it a bit later. All equipment on the switchboard must be identified. And it needs to have a certificate of compliance and a record of inspection. Now, certificate of compliance and record of inspection are issued by electrical person. It's nothing to do with you. When you request temporary power supply, it's been supplied to you, certified, and then inspected. All right, so all routine testing of switchboards, it's prescribed electrical work and must be performed by an electrical worker, certified electrical worker. So it's just as simple as that. Now, this is one of the examples of temporary power supply installation on a post, off the ground, but it's about to fall over. This is not a good installation, and it's right next to a water tap. What can be worse than water and electricity together? Right, once you've got temporary power supply, generally what do we tend to do? We run a lead. We'll have a portable socket outlet assembly, or multi-box as we're calling them, whether they are more or less residential or commercial. It's a weird color, can't really see it well. But doesn't matter, there are certain requirements for those too. Again, compliance with Australia New Zealand Standards 3012. We always look at how it's been built. If this portable box is not compliant to 3012, we are likely to put a notice on it. You cannot use it in construction environment. It should be constructed out of suitable impact-resistant material. Socket outlets must be protected by covers or extended sides. So minimum degree of protection is IP33. Ingress protection is very important. That's what determines how hard working this board in. And just pay attention now, plug bosses are not IP rated. Get rid of them. Today, tomorrow, and then never use plug bosses, okay? That's the most common board that we come across on site, and we ask all tradies to get rid of them. Should never be allowed on construction site. Heavy duty schist cord, and must be protected by an RCD and a circuit breaker. Very simple rules, nothing complicated. If you purchase a right tool in the beginning, you will never have troubles. All you then have to do is just make sure that you maintain this equipment, that you test it, that it's still safe for work. Some photographs, can't really see that. These are your generic plug bosses. They always rupture. The insulation gets damaged very fast. So let's have a look at cord extension sets now. These are probably by dozens in every tradie's van. There are some rules that you need to follow when you use them. It's very simple, but very often we find that people just can't make it right. So cords must be confined to the story of the switchboard. And we're talking here double-story buildings, maybe more than that, commercial, half commercial, or probably more than single-level residential. Must be confined to the story of the switchboard, except that in lift shafts, stairwells, and formwork. Okay, should not be used while coiled or reeled. You have to uncoil them before you use them. Must not be exposed to mechanical water or high temperature damage, and ideally supported off the ground. We've seen examples here. Alan demonstrated a few examples of electrical cords being lifted off the ground, hooked. Perfect. So some minimum specs for cables that are not permanently attached and are not less than 5 meters in length. So minimum conductor size is probably, for most of you don't really need to know that, but just because these are requirements, we decided to put them in here. Conductor size, minimum 1 square mil. Heavy duty cable must have an earth conductor, which should be colored green or yellow. And maximum cable length depends on rated current conductor size and usage. This is tabled in the standard. So some incorrect uses that we have come across. The cable is off the ground on that left slide, but it is passed through a sharp edge, and that's steel. The next thing, it gets pulled, and you're likely to have it damaged. You never place cords in front of mobile plant, and there's a heavy truck here, which is not correct, not good. And there's another one. Cable is just above the door opening. You close the door shut, and you're likely to liven the whole door. Few more examples. You got temporary power supply. You've got damaged lead. You've got another damaged extension lead. And you guys love repairing them yourselves. I know that. I mean, everyone knows that. But be careful when you're doing it. There is some work that you can do and some work that you probably shouldn't be doing. Don't play with electricity. So back to safe use of extension sets. So damaged cables cannot be repaired with insulation tape. Every time we come across damaged cables which were taped, we will ask you to get rid of them. And as I already said, cables must not be laid over sharp edges in places where they can be caught in water, and that's very common. Guys leaving cables in the water, in the puddles, or in the places where water may accumulate. We all have rainy times, and if you leave cords on the ground, they may get flooded. Now let's have a look at power tools section. Power tools is very important. This section is important because it's not only about electrical safety. Well, it is about electrical safety, but it's about the actual way you use tools as well. All right, ASNZ test 3760 outlines generic safety on what you need to do in your daily inspections, routine inspections, and when you actually asking an electrical person or someone who can do test and tech for you. So there's the whole process there is much more than just testing a lead and put a tag on it. The actual point, we're looking at power tools. Power tools should be checked for obvious damage, defects, and modifications before use. Check that flexible cords are effectively anchored. Check that there is no damage to flexible cords. Check that operating controls are in working order. That covers and guards are secured, and that ventilation inlets and exhausts are unobstructed. All these checks are prescribed by 3760. So it's not just your simple test that, and we've got lots of guys from gyms, test and tech here, they will probably be able to tell you firsthand that when you're giving them a tool, it's not just a quick process of checking whether the conductor is all safe inside insulation, but it's all those things together. If you got a broken tool, if you got a missing guard, the tool will never pass a test. All right, so it's a little bit more to it. Another few examples of the tools: air compressor, damaged insulation as before, a drill, great tool, who cares here, damaged insulation. Few other examples of exposed wiring. This is a good one here. This is just recently, I think within the last 4 weeks in Christchurch. This is, I think, 15 amp cable, and one of the guys who purchased it, because this earth conductor won't fit in your normal plug, he decided to grind it down to fit. So it's a completely inappropriate extension set for use in these circumstances. Unguarded grinders, that's just normal, that's what we see often, guys. Guards, missing guards, it's part of your testing, it's part of your tagging, it's part of your safety. Right, the most common tools these days are battery power tools, but I think there is a bit of a misperception about what battery power tools represent in themselves. They have battery packs, it's a source of energy, and they need to be used correctly. So if you look, every time you buy a tool, and I used to do building work, I had all set of DeWalt tools on me, or battery power tools, and I've never opened the manual when I was doing that work. And I don't think that you open in those manuals as well. But if you open it, there will be a few steps that you really need to take to operate them safely. So operator's manual, you need to know that. Those tools can't be used near flammable liquids, gases, or dust. Broken battery packs can leak chemicals. All right? Batteries may vent gas that can explode or be a source of ignition. They can't be placed near fire or heat. They may explode. The big one here, charges. Do not misplace charges. Only charge those batteries with the charges that were designed to be used with these tools. All right, and if you need any repairs to be done on them, take it to a service center. Don't attempt to repair battery cells yourselves. There is an example that's, I don't know whether you've seen it before, that's how DeWalt battery looks inside. Just a pack of battery cells, and that's what happens when one of them explodes, or two of them explode. It can be bad, but generally, proper tools, not cheap tools that are manufactured in China, very often, yeah, they come from China, they're very cheap. Proper tools are very heavy duty, they are drop protected, they are pretty good, but you still have to keep a good eye on it. It's your investment in the end of the day, it's your money, it's your tools, it's your livelihood, it's your income. Take care of your tools, make sure that all electrical stuff, guards and everything else are in place, and you'll be safe, and we will not have problems with you guys when we're going around sites and checking what you're doing and how you're doing it. So that's me.